The Stonewall Riots, the riots that changed gay rights history. On a hot summer night in 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a bar located in New York City's Greenwich Village that served as a haven for the city's gay, lesbian, and transgender community. At the time, homosexual acts remained illegal in almost every state, and bars and restaurants could easily get shut down for having gay employees or serving gay patrons. Most gay bars and clubs in New York at the time, including the Stonewall, were operated by the mafia, who paid corrupt police officers to look the other way and blackmail wealthy gay patrons by threatening to out them. Police raids on gay bars were common, but on this particular night, members of the city's LGBT+ community decided to fight back, sparking an uprising that would launch a new era of resistance and revolution. June 24, 1969, the police arrested a Stonewall employee and confiscated alcohol. On that Tuesday before the riots began, police conducted an evening raid on the Stonewall, arresting some of its employees and confiscating stashes of alcohol. As with many similar raids, the police targeted the bar for operating without a proper alcohol license. After the raid, the NYPD planned a second raid for the following Friday, which they hoped would shut down the bar for good. After midnight on the unseasonably hot Friday night, the Stonewall was packed with 8 plainclothes undercover police officers. 6 men and 2 women entered the bar. In addition to the bar's employees, they also singled out drag queens and other cross-dressing patrons for arrest. In New York City, masquerading as a member of the opposite sex was a crime. More NYPD police officers arrived on foot and 3 patrol cars, and meanwhile bar patrons who had been released joined the crowds of onlookers that were forming outside the Stonewall. A police van arrived and police began loading Stonewall employees and cross-dressers inside. Accounts vary over exactly what kicked off the riots, but according to witness reports, the crowd erupted after police roughed up a woman dressed in masculine attire. Some believed the woman was a lesbian activist, Storm de Lavery, who had complained that her handcuffs were too tight. People started taunting the police officers, yelling pigs and copper, and throwing pennies at them, followed by bottles. Some in the crowd slashed the tires of the police vehicles. According to David Carter, a historian and author, the riots began with a homeless of street kids, those gay men who viewed the Stonewall as their only safe place in their lives. 2 transgender women of colour, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, were said to have resisted arrest and thrown the first bottle, or brick or stone, at the cops. Although Johnson later said in 1987 in a podcast interview with historian Eric Marcus that she had not arrived until after the uprising was well underway. The exact breakdown of who did what remains unclear, in part because this was long before mobile phones, and so there's minimal documentation of the night's events. As the police van and squad cars left to drop the prisoners off at the nearby 6th precinct, the growing mob forced the original NYPD party to retreat into the Stonewall bar itself and barricade themselves inside. Some rioters used a parking meter as a battering ram to break down the door. Others threw beer bottles, trash and other objects, or even made firebombs of bottles, matches and lighter fluid. Sirens announced the arrival of more police officers, as well as the squadrons of the Tactical Patrol Force, the TPF, the city's riot police. As the helmeted police officers marched in formation down Christopher Street, protesters outsmarted them by running away, then circling the short blocks of the village and coming back up behind the officers. Finally, sometime after 4 a.m., things settled down. Amazingly, no one died or was critically injured on the first night of rioting, though a few police officers reported injuries. Despite having torn apart by the cops, the Stonewall Inn opened before dark the very next night, though it wasn't serving alcohol. More and more supporters showed up, chanting slogans like "Gay Power" and "We Shall Overcome." Again, the police were called out to restore order, including an even larger group of TPF officers who beat and tear gassed members of the crowd. This continued until the early hours of the morning when the crowd dispersed. Over the next several nights, gay activists continued to gather near the Stonewall Bar, taking advantage of the moment to spread information and build a community that would fuel the growth of the gay rights movement. Though police officers also returned, the mob was less confrontational, with isolated skirmishes and replacing the larger scale riots of the weekend. In response to the Village Voice's coverage of the riots, which referred to the forces of faculty, protesters swarmed outside the paper's office. Some called for the burning of the building down. When the police pushed back, rioting started again, but lasted only a short time, concluding by midnight. The New York Daily News also resorted to homophobic slurs in its detailed coverage, running the headline, "Homo Nest Raided, Queen Bees Are Stinging Mad." Meanwhile, the New York Times wrote only sparingly of the whole event, and printing a short article on page 22 on the June the 30th titled, "Police Again Wrote Village Reviews." Stonewall soon became a symbol of resistance to social and political discrimination that would inspire solidarity among homosexual groups for decades to come. Although the Stonewall Riots cannot be said to have initiated the gay rights movement as such, it did serve as a catalyst for a new generation of political activism. Older groups were now making way for the newer groups such as the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activist Alliance. In addition to launching numerous public demonstrations to protest the lack of civil rights for gay individuals, these organisations often resorted to such tactics as public confrontations with political officers and the disruption of public meetings to challenge the ways of times. Acceptance and respect from the establishment were no longer being humbly requested, but angrily and righteously demanded. The broad-based radical activism of many gay men and lesbians in the 1970s eventually set into motion a new, non-discriminatory trend in government policies and helped educate society regarding this significant minority.